everyone, welcome back to my channel. Sarah here, wishing everyone a very happy new year, and so excited to get stuck into my first currently inked video of the year. Bit of housekeeping right off the bat. As you may have seen on my YouTube or on my Instagram, I've decided to actually change the name of my channel. You can read my full posters to reasonings, but now called Pause with a Pen. Exactly the same stuff, content, still me, still Sarah, just a name change. So if that was confusing you, I hope that clears it up. Let's get straight into it. So I thought first what I'd do is I'd run through my December, what worked, what didn't, and then show you what I have planned for January. December, I started off with 4 pens, and then midway through I actually got the 5th pen and couldn't wait to ink it up, so I added that one in, and I'm really happy I did. To start off with, I had the TWSBI Eco. It's an extra fine nib, and it was inked with Diamine Oxblood. I loved the ink. The ink was incredible, and the ink, I think, the pairing made me fall in love with the TWSBI more. The TWSBI and I didn't get off to the best start, but I really enjoyed writing with it in December, so much so that I've actually carried it through with a different ink to January for 2 reasons, but one being that I just want to keep falling in love with it, so I want to keep using it. So I've said, it was smooth and wet, but not crazy, and it was just a fantastic pairing. Next up, just grabbing my pens, was the Platinum Preppy in a fine nib with Pen BBS number 270, also known as Strawberry Milkshake. And I actually am not sure where my Preppy is, so I'm not going to be able to pull that one out right now. I really like writing with the Preppy. I actually really like the colour, but for longer form journaling, maybe just a touch too light to read. It definitely swatches darker than it writes, and I've just written I'd be really interested to see what it looked like in a really wet pen. And I am struggling to clean my Preppy properly, so I just made note of that as well. I need to give it another go. The grey, it's not the feed, what's that called? I just lost my words. The grey bit is just staining. Next up, I had my Lamy Safari with a medium nib and Robert Oster the Great Owl, which is the Desk Bandit 5th birthday exclusive. Beautiful ink, really beautiful shader, and I have just written that I would love to try it in a stub nib. I really like the medium nib. I just am not drawn towards the blue colour of this Lamy Safari. So I've done some things with that that you'll see coming up for January. After that, and this, actually I really loved as well. I was going to say, was it my favourite, but I can't pick a favourite, was the Kaweco Sport 1.1 stub nib in Pen BBS 227 Purple Jazz. Love the ink. It's a really dark purple with almost like a grey undertone there. It wrote beautifully. I really loved the ink. It was maybe a tiny bit dry in this pen, but that is really me nitpicking. I really loved both the pen, both the ink. Would also love to try the ink in other pens just to see if it can go from being like 85% amazing to 100% amazing. And then last up, I got this pen secondhand. It's the Pilot E95S fine nib with a 14 karat nib. It is such a beautiful pen. It's a fantastic writer. It's just gorgeous. And I inked it up with Robert Oster Gold Antica. It was an amazing combination. I actually really liked it. It's a really interesting ink. I literally wrote really interesting ink. At least I agree with myself. I know I look at the ink and go, am I going to like this? And then I just kept picking up the pen and picking up the pen. I was drawn to it. I really loved this pairing, loved this pen. Just everything about this worked for me, which is good to know. I've decided for the first 3 months of this year. So my Stalogy that I like journal and bullet journal in is the 365. They last me around 3 months, and I've set myself a little bit of a challenge, goal, exploration exercise, whatever you want to call it. But I kind of want to theme through it, and what I'm going to do is kind of move from burgundy-ish inks through to purple-ish, through to purpley, bluey, grey. So the first month is all going to be within one colourway, then the next, then the next. I'm really interested to just see, first of all, what it's like to write when all your pens and colours are within one, like, I guess, narrower colour aesthetic, and then how the journal looks at the end as I slowly transition through it. I could abandon it halfway through. It could be a terrible idea, but I think it could be fun to do. I've been thinking a bit lately about, like we do ink swaps and things, but this idea of theming, or could you theme with someone else? Like I was thinking this morning about what would it be like to say in June, where here we're going into winter, or July, we're going into the thick of winter, middle of winter would be July, and doing some sort of like Instagram live with someone in America or Canada who's going into the heat of their summer, and like looking at the inks we choose, and if you can see themes and like patterns around that, because I can see myself probably choosing like darker, cooler inks, and someone in summer might, pick some really bright and happy ones. And I just think that could maybe be a fun thing to do, but to watch. I would watch something like that. So, hey, I guess if you are on the other side of the world and that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let me know, because I think I love watching currently into videos. I know a lot of people do, and I would be really intrigued to see how to make them more interactive. But that's a bit of a digression, and maybe the dog barking is telling me to shut up and hurry up. So moving on to January, and I've just written 2023 up the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 pens inked for January. These 2 pens are inked as well, but I won't be including them because they just need to be cleaned. And this one I just wanted to get to know this pen a little bit, and I wanted to get to know this shimmer ink. So they're not going to be used in my notebook, and that is why I'm not including them. So just take sip of water. First up is the TWSBI Eco. This is TWSBI Eco in black. This has an extra fine nib, and I've inked this. Where am I? With Robert Oster Australis Rose. As that dog continues to bark. Oh, and look, first one, I've made a mistake. It's an extra fine. And I've never used this ink before. I was on the search for what I would call, oh God, talking and writing at the same time. Not the best idea, maybe. I was on the search, I guess, for what I would call like a dirty pink. There's a pink there, but there's like hints of red, there's hints of brown, there's almost like hints of black. I didn't want like a bright poppy pink. I wanted something muted and a bit moody. So I got a couple of samples a little bit similar, and I thought I would give this one a go. So that is the first one that I have. I'll just bring that up closer. And 2 mistakes in the first one. How annoying is that? Next up, had to include this pen again. It's the Pilot E95S in a fine nib, and I inked this up with Noodler's ink, Black Swan in Australian Roses. And I actually thought I might I don't know if I regret this, even though I've just done it. The thinking was I definitely wanted noodlers involved in this month. And I love this pen. And I went, okay, well, I love both of them. Surely they'll work well together. But I don't know, something's not sitting right with it for me. And I really don't know what it is because it writes nicely. Maybe it's like a color thing. I don't know, it might sound really silly, but it doesn't feel right, even though I literally have just done it. Something feels a bit off. So I'll be interested to see at the end of the month if I still feel that way or not. But it is just such a gorgeous ink. So that's the second one. The third one, bit of a Franken pen. As I said before, love the medium nib, don't like the blue. And I have watched some videos on YouTube of people like that you can put the Lamy nibs on the Jinhao 80 pen. And so that's what I did. I've tried. I haven't done any writing with it. I've just tried to do it. It seems to fit. I got the pen working. So that is what I'm going to try and do. So this is the Jinhao 80. It is gold trim, and then that nib is silver. It's not the end of the world. But we'll see how we go, I guess. And in this Jinhao is Robert Oster Hippo Purple. And the first thing I can see is that it is writing very wet. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I wonder from a ghosting point of view, all the animals making noises outside with Stalogy paper, if that'll end up annoying me. But it seems to write fine, like just being able to pop that nib on. I definitely wanted to include this ink. I'd only used it a tiny bit, and I find it to be a really interesting ink. I think it has shading potential. I wonder if that's almost like just laid down a bit too much ink, but you can see hints of it there. My Jinhao 80 hard start, so I really had to prime it to get it going. So I wonder if it's a bit flooded. I'm hoping that once it rectifies, like evens itself out, that maybe I'll be able to get some more shading, because you can see little bits that look awesome. So that is the third one that I have inked up for this month. Next up, one of the pens I got for Christmas. This is a TWSBI Go in a fine nib. So one of the reasons I wanted to keep this one in was actually to compare the two TWSBIs, you know, in the same month, writing with them, to see if I do have a preference. I wanted to go with this one. I don't like writing with this posted, and I wanted to see kind of what their pocket pen was like. First thing I'll note, and I definitely would put this in my notes, is inking this mechanism. I'm not going to take it out because I don't want to make a mess, but doing the spring loading I found really hard with a sample bottle. I don't know if you can see, but that's really all I could get in, and it was a full 2 ml sample. So whether that was user error me or this mechanism just doesn't work well with those little vials, it is something I guess that I will be aware of. But this is, I think, an absolutely gorgeous ink. It's another Robert Oster, and this is Robert Oster Burgundy Chocolate Notes. And this is in a fine nib. Why for Burgundy Notes? Oh, I just think that ink is incredible. So interested to see how I find this pen and compare it. You can see that it is definitely a thicker line compared to its extra fine buddy up the top. I've got my little squiggle. bring that one up close for you. Oh, I think that is such a gorgeous ink. I'm very excited to use that one. And then last but not least, I've been really enjoying writing with a stub nib, so I thought I would keep a stub nib in. Maybe concerned that this ink's going to be a touch too light, but I think it's going to shade beautifully. So this is the Kaweco Sport 1.1 stub nib. Just make sure I get my things in the right order here. And this is Ferris Wheel Press Madame Mulberry. It is quite light. It swatches darker. It's one of those ones. I'm hoping that, I don't know, it might not, I was going to say it might not be user-friendly, which sounds very technical when talking about pens, but I don't know, I definitely want to give it a go. I think there is a potential in that colour. It does maybe dry a bit darker. Maybe I shouldn't put it in a pen that is going to shade, but I definitely wanted to give it a go. So those are my currently inked pens and inks for January. As you can see, like, for me, there's a relationship between these colours. It's not that I had to strictly use all pinks or all purples. I just wanted them to be, related to each other. And for me, there is a relationship there of, I guess, towards burgundy, pinky browns. Like they make sense to me personally. But that being said, at the end of the month, it would be interesting and go, oh, actually, you know what, did this one stick out like a sore thumb, for example? I'm really, really excited to get stuck into this one and see how that one writes, and also see what it's like with the Lamy nib on the Jinhao pen. Just looking at the previous page, tiny bit of bleed through just in my TWSBI Go sample, but otherwise everything looks fine. I have it here in a slightly different order, but this is on Tomoe River paper. This is just a Tomoe River notebook from the Desk Bandit. Fantastic notebook. And I think this is it 8? I think they call this B6 Slim, this size, dot grid. So that's what it looks like side by side on that paper. Those ones are in a different order. And there's no ghosting whatsoever there. You can see the TWSBI Go has some nice shading there, so I'm hoping I can get a bit more of that there as well. So line them up for you. This is my currently inked, and as I do it all, they're all basically black or demonstrator pens. So that actually wasn't intentional. This matching was intentional, not this, but there you go. It kind of looks nice anyway. That is my currently inked. I would love to know if you, not only if you've used these inks, but if you've done any of these pairings before, and if it's worked or hasn't worked for you, or I guess what of here you are most excited to see. Is there one that really jumps out at you or not? Is there one that you go, oh, that's going to be an awful pairing? You should waste the 0.5 ml of ink you put in and put something else in. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening as I go through my currently inked. I can't wait to get stuck into my journal and test out all these pens. And as always, I cannot wait to chat and hang with you guys again soon. I will see you later. Bye.